back to Stacy So and So. Thank you for joining me again this week. I hope you guys have had a fantastic week and that you've made some beautiful, beautiful things. Also, I want to welcome the new subscribers that I've had. Thank you so much for being here and deciding to follow me on my sewing journey. I hope you find information here valuable, helpful, inspirational. So, I do have a couple of projects that I'm working on, and I've been filming the process of both of them, but neither of them are finished. So I will hopefully have those out in the next couple of weeks, and I will share some video at the end just to kind of show you what's coming and what I've been working on. So I hope you'll stick around for that. Today's video is a response, in a way, to some videos that I saw, not on this platform, but on another video platform, that kind of made me think about people who are wanting to get started sewing. And so if you're someone who's been sewing for a while, I hope you'll stick around, because I have a list of things that I felt like was important to have to get started on a sewing journey. And if you've been sewing for a while, there might be things that you feel like I've overlooked, or there were things that you had when you first started sewing that you felt made all the difference, and I hope that you'll share that information in the comments below. So let me tell you a little bit about the videos I saw. The one, I know it came from a place of trying to educate people, but it came across very, very negatively, almost bashing a certain brand of sewing machine. And I'm not going to share what that brand is, because I don't do that. My thought on buying a sewing machine is you buy the best that you can afford. Now, when I saw the video, I decided I'd read the comments underneath. And I thought to myself, if I were someone who wanted to start sewing and I saw that, I would feel like I couldn't do it. That, unless I can afford something better than what they're saying, if that's the only machine I could afford, then I guess I just can't get started. And I don't think it was intended to be that way, but that is certainly how it came across. So obviously, number one on my list, I do have a list of 10 things. Number one on my list obviously is that you're going to need a sewing machine. Now, when it comes to buying a sewing machine, are some brands better than others? Yes, just like anything else you buy. But do you need the fanciest, most expensive to get started? Absolutely not. And don't let someone tell you that, because it is an opinion. It is that person's opinion, because this particular brand they were talking about, I've heard other people say they've loved this particular machine. They were happy with it. It was a great way for them to get started. Because one, the price point was within their budget. And I think that is the most important thing. If you really want to get started sewing, you have to find something that you can afford and that really hits your price point. And you will, if you take care of your machine, you will have it for a few, several years. And as you continue on your journey and you really get into sewing more, you'll be ready to upgrade at some point. But as far as a place to begin, my advice is always buy the machine that you can afford, and don't feel bad about that. I started out with a very inexpensive machine, and then I got a Kenmore, which a lot of people go, oh, Kenmore. My mom got it for me from Sears, and that machine, by the way, still works. I still have it 30 plus years later. So pick the machine that you feel is right for you at your particular place. Now, secondhand machines, yes, they can be great, but if you don't know much about sewing machines, you could either be getting a great deal or you could be buying someone else's problem. So if you have someone that knows something about sewing and sewing machines, and you're going out looking at a secondhand machine at a thrift store, or one of our local quilting stores has a repair sewing machine repair department, and they will buy old machines when they find them, and they'll refurbish them, and you can get some great deals on some older machines. And yes, those older machines are great because they were made at a time where everything was made from metal and they last a long time. and someone has worked on them and refurbished them that really knew what they were doing. So those are two options I would say. Look at machines around you that are new that you can afford. If you are lucky enough to have a place like we do that they refurbish old machines, definitely go take a look at them. If you come across one at a thrift store or any secondhand store, make sure that they will let you plug it in and that you can test a few things on it first, like does it turn on at all? When you have it threaded with machine, you know, is it doing, is it stitching? Those, just some basics. Also, make sure that it comes with, if it's an older machine, make sure you understand what kind of bobbins that it needs. My old Kenmore only uses the old metal bobbins. My newer machine that I have back here, they use the class 15 plastic. So those are some things to consider when you are looking for a machine. So what are some other things that you need? Well, once you have your sewing machine, if you buy a new one, usually they come with a couple of different kinds of needles for your machine. So depending on your project, you will need to pick up some sewing needles. There are plenty of places that you can buy them. They're not overly expensive, and it's not like you have to have a new one like every time you sew. Some people will disagree with me on that. I use my needles for as long as I possibly can. But you can get them at Joann's, you can get them at Walmart. If you have a local store, definitely check them and pick the proper needle for your project. If you're just starting out sewing, I don't recommend starting out on jersey just because it can be very frustrating. But if you're sewing jersey first or at all, you're going to need ballpoint or jersey needles. If you're sewing like really, really thick fabric, like I sew a lot of denim, so I have a lot of jean needles, like heavy duty needles. But for a basic needle to get started with, you can buy a little package of universal needles, and the little packet usually has like maybe 5 different kinds of universal needles that will work for a multitude of projects. So you'll definitely need those. You are also going to need some straight pins, and I recommend having something to stick them in. Or a little, get yourself a little plastic container, or keep them inside of there, put a magnet in the bottom. That is very helpful so that they don't go flying everywhere. So definitely get some straight pins because you're going to need those for when you're pinning your project together and taking it over to your sewing machine when you're first getting started. Very helpful to use straight pins. And as far as buying straight pins and even your tape measure, if you can buy those at, of course, any fabric store, but you can also find those things at Dollar General. I have seen them at Dollar Tree, and of course Walmart has them. So there are definitely places that you can go, get the items that you need, and spend a little less. No big deal. The other thing you're going to need is thread. You're going to need to pick some thread that goes with the project that you have chosen that will coordinate with your fabric. But two basic threads for sure to always have on hand are white and black. And then if you're like me, also it's great to have some navy blue or tan. And again, when you're first starting out and you're practicing and you're doing just some simple projects, other places outside of like Joann's and Michael's and fabric stores and quilting stores, you can find them on Amazon online. You can find the thread at Dollar Tree. Is it the best thread in the world? No. But is it good? Yes, it is. I have used it in a pinch. I have run over. I'm like, oh my gosh, I hem a pair of pants and I'm out of beige thread again. And yes, you can. So there are plenty of places. You just have to search a little bit. Secondhand fabric stores, thrift stores, you'd be surprised what people donate. You could definitely find thread there. I have thread that my grandmother had used. She had a great sewing box full of stuff, and she passed away in 2010, and I got all of her sewing stuff. There's thread in her box that's still great. It is not dry rot at all, and I have used that. So make sure you have some thread. You do not have to spend a fortune. Don't let anyone make you feel like you have to, especially when you're first starting out. Now, what else are we going to need? I got my list here. you are going to obviously pick a pattern or a project. Now you can find sewing patterns obviously at all the fabric stores. You can find them online. If you have a printer and a computer at home, there's so many free places online that you can print PDF patterns. And putting them together is not difficult at all. It's like putting together a big jigsaw puzzle. So you can find free patterns online. Excuse me. You can find secondhand stores, thrift stores. People donate those types of items all the time. So once you find your pattern or your project and you have that ready to go, the next thing you got to think about is fabric. So what are some other items that you need when you're first getting started? Well, you're going to need a tape measure. A ruler is good, but you can't wrap a ruler around yourself necessarily to get your measurements. But if you don't have a tape measure, or for some reason you just can't find one, what you can do is make sure you have a ruler or a yardstick. And it is possible to take a piece of twine or a piece of yarn and take that around yourself, then measure that piece of yarn using your ruler to see what the measurements are. But tape measures are very inexpensive. I mean, even if you buy like a small sewing kit and you're starting off with the little paper one that comes in there, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. I've used those many a times because, sometimes my tape measure goes missing. I'll leave it sitting somewhere and forget where it is. And, I still have like those little sewing kits and stuff, and I'll grab one out of my purse and that's what I'll use. So definitely you're going to need some measuring tools, and start with a tape measure. The other thing that is really important, and you can see them above my head, you're definitely going to need a pair of scissors to cut your fabric and your trim and your notions. I do have some really nice scissors that I have purchased, but when I was first starting out, you see those blue ones right there? I've had those for years. Now I don't use them for fabric anymore because I've had them for so long, but they still cut paper great. So I'll use them for cutting out, like PDF patterns or cutting out my patterns and things like that. And I want to say I've had them for so long, I'm not sure. These might have been the ones I got from IKEA. They weren't the very first pair of scissors I ever had, but I think they were an inexpensive pair I bought at IKEA. And they worked just great for a long time. So buy yourself a really nice pair of sharp scissors. You can always have your scissors sharpened. And if they're inexpensive, you can later on buy a more expensive pair if you want to. I have a pair of Ginkers up here. I forget what the other brand is down here. They're fantastic. But when I was first getting started, I didn't have the money to spend on an expensive pair of scissors, and you really don't need to. Okay, so a couple of more little tools that you will need, that you will find very helpful when you first start sewing, are one, safety pins, which you can buy anywhere. Dollar General, Dollar Tree, sometimes your local grocery store, but you'll definitely need safety pins. The safety pins are helpful for when you have, say you're doing a scrunchie and you're sewing a long tube of fabric and you need to turn it. You put your safety pin on one side, you feed it through. It's also helpful for feeding elastic through a tube if you're doing a waistband. So definitely get yourself some safety pins. Once you've been sewing for a while, if you want to invest in a bodkin for turning tubes and things like that, you certainly can, but it's not something that you absolutely have to have when you're first getting started. The other thing that you'll want to do is have a tool that you can use to help poke out corners. So let's say you're making, a tablecloth or a placemat. It's rectangular and it has corners, but you need to be able to get something in there to get those corners nice and sharp looking. You can use a chopstick. I think this one was one I just had left over for when we ordered Chinese food one night. And then I also like this little tool. This is a little brace. I had ordered a pair of shoes, and this was the piece that was stuck in there to help hold it up and make it look nice as it was being shipped to me. So These are very helpful. There are a multitude of things that you can use to poke out corners, but these work really well. And a lot of times, like both of mine, they were free. So you'll definitely want those. And of course, the next thing you're going to need is fabric. And there are just so many places that you can get affordable fabric without having to go even to a fabric store. So obviously you can go to a regular fabric store. And if you're going to like Joann's or whatever your local fabric store is, be sure to check out their remnants and check out their clearance section, because sometimes you can find some fabulous prices on fabric for your project in those areas, and it will save you a lot of money. Other places to look for fabric options: your local thrift store. And sometimes they also get donations of people who maybe just don't want to sew anymore, or maybe they had a family member that's passed and they didn't know what else to do, so they took it to the thrift store. But one area that I always check out when I go to the thrift store is the linen section. I will check out the curtains, any sort of sheets, bedding, tablecloths, you name it, because it is just that. It's fabric. And so you can go there and find sometimes the perfect piece of fabric that you need at a fraction of the cost. Now, if you're doing a small project that doesn't require, lots of yardage, you can also check out our Dollar Tree has started carrying fat quarters. So you can certainly check them out. Check out Dollar General, because again, sometimes they tend to have stuff that sell out too, and their curtains and things are a lot less expensive. In the wintertime, when they have out their $5 fleece blankets, if you're wanting to make like a sweatshirt or a jacket, their fleece blankets are only $5. And it's a lot of fabric, and I have used them for projects. So those are just some general ideas. But another great resource for affordable fabric are secondhand fabric stores and secondhand craft stores. They're scattered throughout the country. If you're lucky enough to have one in your community, that's great. Be sure to check them out. But if not, I'm going to give you 4. I have a little post-it note here because I wanted to make sure I mentioned these 4, and I will include the links for these businesses in the description below. They are a fabulous place to check out, not just for fabric, but for trim. Some of them also carry some of the sewing tools, so you may want to check them out for that. So the first one I'm going to mention is Paper City Fabrics, which is one of my favorites. I always find some fantastic fabric from Paper City Fabrics. The second is Swanson's Fabrics. Swanson's has been around, they've been around longer than the other ones that I'm going to mention, I think. And they always have an amazing drop. I think they do their drop on Thursdays, a drop of new fabric and notions and trims. And if you like to knit or crochet, also, they also get lots of donations of yarn. So you may want to definitely check them out as well. Another one that you will want to check out is called Lucky Deluxe Fabrics. Again, secondhand fabrics that are sourced from sometimes donations. She'll check estate sales. The fabric just comes from a multitude of places, but it's always really nice. Another one that you'll want to check out is probably the newest one, is called Making Space Thrift. And she's got her website up and running. She doesn't have everything in her store on the website, but if you reach out to them, if you're looking for something specific, you could always send them a message and go, hey, I'm working on this project and I need to find some, blue plaid flannel or whatever. And if they have it, they of course would contact you. Actually, any of these places would. But definitely check out Making Space Thrift. She's great. I love working with Natalie. I've called her in the past when I'm looking for something specific, and she's always been such a great resource. So definitely be sure to check out the online secondhand fabric stores. These are just 4 of many across the country. If you get on Google and search for secondhand fabric stores, I am sure you will come up with a very long list, and most all of them have online shops as well as brick and mortar stores. So if you are getting ready to start your sewing journey, or you're new to sewing, I hope that the information that I gave you is helpful. If you are someone who has been sewing for a long time and you think back to when you first started, if there's something you feel like I missed, or maybe there was something that you found very helpful when you first started, please be sure to include that in the comments below, because it could be really helpful to someone else who's just starting out. Now, as I promised, I am going to give you a little sneak peek of the 2 projects that I currently have going and I'm trying to film the process of. I will hopefully have videos out on both of these over the next couple of weeks. So give me just a second and I will turn the camera around so you can see what I've been up to. So take a quick look at this. There we go. I initially started this project. I was going to do just a denim and white lace skirt, but my mannequin is kind of short and she's very thin, so I had to pull the waistband up, and then I took a look at it and now I'm trying to decide whether I want to make it a dress or if I still want to continue to make it a skirt. So that project is kind of on hold as I continue to think about it. And the second project, as you can see, a whole bunch of squares that I have cut out. This is all secondhand fabric. Some of it's sheets, some of it is from thrift stores, secondhand fabric stores, and I'm going to be working on a boho style skirt. As you can see, I have actually started the first row of panels. The top of this is actually the piece, the top of what I cut off for the project that I just showed you. I really liked the top of it because only the back part of this draws strings. So the front remains nice and kind of flat when you wear it. But this is the second project that I'm working on. So thank you for joining me again this week. I hope that if you are a new sewist or someone who wants to get into sewing, that you found this video helpful. I hope you enjoyed getting a little sneak peek at the projects that I am working on. I do have a little exciting news that I will be sharing soon about a new place that I will be listing my upcycle projects. So that'll be in a video coming probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Hopefully I'll have these projects done first so that you can see them, and these projects, these 2 skirts or dress, whatever the one turns out to be, will actually be going into my new shop, the new place that I'll be listing my items. So I'm very excited. So hope everybody has a fabulous week. I will see you again next week, and happy sewing.